Hello and welcome to the show. We are on the streets of Adelaide this week as I attempt to drive some more vehicles around this relatively high-speed track, at least high speed for BeamNG Drive. Our first car today is the WRC Polo. When we took this down the mountain, this was a pretty damn quick car. It's pretty high up on the leaderboard on the downhill chaos, so I was interested to see how it would fare around this track. It is very fast accelerating. Doesn't have a particularly good top speed though. It's also quite understeery as things all go a little bit wrong through the first few corners. I didn't quite expect the humongous understeer that you get with this car. The brakes are also not that good. Yeah, I braked quite early for that. We still didn't stop in time, and maybe face planted the wall slightly. The car still works, it still drives, it's a little bit broken bodywork wise. The other problem, we had this with the Capri, the manhole covers like to rip the wheels off for some reason. It only happens to some vehicles, only certain cars have this issue. The Polo is one of them. Since it was like 2 weeks since I last drove here, completely forgot about it. And of course the first time I went near the manhole cover, off came the wheel. I was doing pretty well further around, and then I got some understeer, and then we found a very solid advertising boarding. I thought, you know, I'd try the corner, got a huge understeer, but I sort of kept my foot down. I didn't realise that the board, you couldn't go through the boards. I didn't think about it, and it's kind of squished Volkswagen. It's still going, which is quite impressive. That's a pretty damn heavy impact on here. As you can see, the front wheels are kind of back where the door is, slightly through the door in fact. It's still driving despite being that compacted. That surprised me. I really expected that not to work at all. Understeer was a problem with this car. Again, through these corners I had a few understeer problems here, trying to carry too much speed, or more speed than the cars can do. I keep thinking they can go faster around that one, and got an awful lot of understeer in the Polo, and we were straight off into the wall. The front of the car has not fared particularly well in this one. First corner may have braked a little bit too late. We're up on two wheels, and when we land, this is the least spectacular of the crashes with the Polo. The car is fine. It's just pointing slightly the wrong way, and we got it up on two wheels over a curb, which is not too bad. Again, coming down this section, slam on the brakes. Didn't really think about the manhole cover there. I've never had a problem with that manhole cover. To be fair, I think I was slightly out of position, so I was taking a little bit of a different line as I came under the brakes, and hitting that one took off the front wheel this time round. Again, this corner was one of the bigger problems with the Polo. Just getting the damn thing stopped for here. Far too much speed, ripped the handbrake, and we just kept it out of the wall and kind of slid it into the corner. Not really the ideal racing line through there. I will be honest, it's not a good line to be taking particularly. After a little while, I got a clean lap with this car. It's quite difficult to drive around this track, I'll be honest. The understeer is humongous. It's a really very understeery car, as you can see, with the smoke billowing off the front wheels as we're taking the fairly high-speed corners. It's a real pain getting this around some of the corner, or carrying corner speed around some of these. The other problem is the brakes. They are shockingly poor on this. I think they're made of a sort of paper mache or something. It just does not stop. I think it's a fairly common thing for Beam, as the car's just not really quite designed for this yet. The game's still very much in development, and racing around sort of proper racetracks is not something that's really sort of fully there yet, shall we say. So yeah, the cars are not quite designed for this as of yet. It makes it an additional challenge. It just doesn't stop at all. It's very quick accelerating. It's a nice stable car to drive. I will say that it's a lovely stable vehicle. I don't have any problems with the car sort of being uncontrollable once you go over a certain speed. It doesn't go very quick in a straight line. 105 miles an hour it tops out. Oh, thank you to the people who told me how to change the speedo to miles an hour as well. That's much more useful. Yeah, it tops out at 105. It gets to it very quickly, but that's all that it will manage to do. Under braking into the hairpin, we're struggling to get it stopped. We do get it stopped this time. And then we've got a couple of corners coming up that are a pain with the understeer, basically. This sort of double, well, it's kind of like a double left almost. You can take it like that if you did it right, and I didn't quite get it right, but Sonic the Polo made it. And then this final corner, it's a deceptively tough sort of final couple of corners. You've got this fast right-hander, which I don't go out too wide on. Still lots of understeer. And then the final corner, which you've got to try and get the car slowed down for. The Polo just does not like getting stopped. Once we are around the final corner, though, of course we can boot it. It's a nice four-wheel drive car, so good traction on this, good acceleration as we come across the line. It is probably quicker to throw this car around in a circle and stop it than it is to to jump on the brakes. Didn't notice the brakes problems when I was driving it down the downhill chaos course, but on this sort of terrain or this sort of track, it doesn't particularly like stopping. It does do a very good donut though. I will point that out. It is excellent at doing the on-the-spot donuts. Yeah, it's quite challenging getting this Polo around the course, but it did make it. Up next, we've got the DSC Buggy. This is the car that leads the downhill chaos course, and it leads it by, I think, about 4 seconds. Phenomenally quick down the off-road, tight, twisty course. So I thought I'd give it a go around a very different sort of terrain to see if it could keep its dominance up, to see if it could lead. This one I may have left the handbrake on a little bit. On that one I forgot it was still on the handbrake, but we did get it off the line. This again is four-wheel drive. It is quite a quick vehicle, but it is very difficult to control. Coming up into turn 1, I managed to roll the thing off the wall. I'm still quite proud of myself for managing to do that. Didn't expect to have a car roll quite there, but to be fair, I didn't expect to have cars roll at all on a street circuit, but I managed to find a way. The next attempt, it got all twitchy, and then we smack a wall and go round in a circle. This is a tough car to drive at high speeds. It gets very, very twitchy once you get to high speeds. Of course, on the downhill chaos course, it never gets to high enough speeds to have a problem, but around here, it's all high speed in relative terms, so it is a bit of a pain. I tried to take that corner flat out in the buggy. It doesn't work. Nope, you can't. couldn't do that. It hit the same. The Holden advertisings are very, very well planted around this track, and then we're stuck on our roof. I was trying to get it back on this wheel, see if it would handle, but apparently not. The trick with this was to be sort of gentle. If you actually wanted to get it around the track, you have to be very, very gentle with the steering inputs. One small mistake, such as that, it started getting away from me. I thought I can keep it together, I can keep it flat out. I couldn't, and then you smack a wall, and then you roll down the track. You've got to be just so incredibly smooth with all of the steering inputs, and I may have failed coming off the line on that one. I'm still not the proudest of that particular crash. I don't know how I managed to crash sort of 200 meters off the start line, and then we got it going again. To be fair, it didn't handle much worse when it was this broken. I may have had another crash. The suspension was at a slightly wonky angle, which meant the car was often on 3 wheels as you tried to go around the corner. Then it did that, but it still didn't handle terribly when it was all broken. Surprisingly, it didn't actually take as long as I thought it would with the buggy to get a clean lap with it. The key is just be so careful with everything. I'm driving this on a 360 controller, as I always do with Beam stuff, and even that I am struggling. I am struggling to be smooth enough to keep this thing on the track. It is a very, very tough vehicle to drive. It is very, very fast, as we've proven before. It's four-wheel drive. It can accelerate very quickly, but once you get it over a certain speed, I'm not quite sure what speed it is, but once you get it over that, it likes to just kind of wander around a little bit in a straight line, and then trying to bring it back under control is very, very tough, because any sort of large movements on the steering and it will have a big crash. Any sort of slight oversteer moments are absolutely terrifying in this car, because it is so easy to lose control. Going over the curb there was a little bit scary. The back end of the car is just wanting to start sliding out, and that's when you have a big crash with this vehicle, trying to control that. This is also, just going in fast in a straight line is also quite tricky. Again, I'm trying to just do little tiny movements as we come up towards a very scary corner. It can be taken flat out in this vehicle, and amazingly I never had a big crash at that corner. I could keep it smooth enough through that bit. Under braking, it's not terrible. It gets stopped from about the same distance as the Polo did, but it's going a little bit faster, so the brakes are a bit better on the buggy. It's a little bit easier to get stopped. We don't have huge understeer problems either through these corners. The problem is the twitchiness of it. I hit the curb, got an oversteer moment going on there. It's so easy to have a crash when you do that. It's incredibly easy to make sort of silly mistakes as we come up towards the final corner now. Don't go and visit the advertising boards this time round. Get the car slowed down and get it turned into the final corner, and be careful putting the power down as it likes to get a little bit twitchy, and then we do a run to the line and things go a little bit wrong as we're trying to get to the line. There's a bit of a wheelie and a bit of a bounce off the wall. It makes you to cross the line. I just put a fraction too much power down coming out of that final corner, and then it started to get away from me, but I wanted to get it across the line. We bumped it off the wall, but it's okay. It crossed the line. It is a difficult car to drive at the high speed stuff. Very good on the low speed stuff, as we've proved before. This high speed track, it is very difficult to drive. Our third and final vehicle today is the Datsun pickup truck that I thought we'd give this one a go in race specification. We've driven various trucks down the downhill chaos course. Every time I use one of them, they get fitted with the off-road specification because, well, it's an off-road course, so it makes sense. For this, I've decided to use the race spec of the car, so we shouldn't have the problem of it falling over every time it tries to go around a corner, which is useful. It should be fairly good on the handling front, well, as good as a pickup truck will be. It's lower. I think it's got sort of more road-going tyres. Still got a fair amount of power in this, so I was expecting the Datsun to be. I thought we could get a little bit of a surprise from the pickup trucks, because I think this one's still rear-wheel drive. I think if you have it, actually yes, it is rear-wheel drive because it does this a lot. There are four-wheel versions of this, and again, as I said in previous stuff, we may come back to different versions of the trucks. We may try a four-wheel version of the Datsun. In two-wheel drive configuration, it's rather tail happy. You got to be very gentle on the throttle this time. Steering much better, much easier to drive, not twitchy. Nowhere near as twitchy, but you've got to be incredibly careful with the power in this. So as we came up to the very fast corner, I thought, I'll take it flat out first time. Wasn't a clever idea. It wasn't the cleverest thing that I've ever done. A very big crash for the Datsun as we rolled down the road. I think it was about five and a half rolls in that. That was a big shunt for the truck. I thought it might take it flat out. I thought it had enough grip, because it was handling pretty well the other corners. It doesn't do it. Next time I did make it around the corner just about, a little bit of understeer creeping in, then we get some oversteer, and then we're wiggling down the road just about. Got the truck back under control. Brakes aren't too bad in the Datsun, but they're not amazing. The real problem was me doing silly things like that. It was so easy to just use a little bit too much throttle. It was all it took, just a tiny bit too much throttle, and then you would spin it uncontrollably, and this happened a few times, a few more times than I would care to mention. It's a little bit of a pain. This is actually a really nice car to drive. I actually enjoyed driving the Datsun probably the most of all of the vehicles here. It's just a little bit tricky on the power delivery front. A four-wheel drive version of the racing, with all the racing sort of bits, would be I think would be actually pretty damn quick. I then figured that you could do a burnout with the car that made the suspension be very unhappy. And then I managed to destroy the chassis. I'm not sure quite how that works, but don't do extended burnouts with the car. I really shattered the chassis and I'm still confused quite how I managed to break it that much. Also managed to roll the Datsun, quite a neat little roll off the wall with the the Datsun, turned into the corner a little bit too soon, and then got the back out a little bit, brushed the wall. I'm actually surprised how well that went over. A little bit further on, I was starting to get the hang of the Datsun. Now, as I said earlier, this game is still very much in development, and I'm using mods for an in-development game, so there are the occasional bug. This is one of the funniest bugs that I think I've ever come across. Slightly irritating, as I was on for quite a good lap. As you can see, the car has started to disintegrate on its own accord. The door has pinged off on the right-hand side. The door on the left is sort of looking... Oh, there it goes. The door's gone. The car is basically giving up as we're driving along. I have no idea what caused that. The Vectra did it on a downhill chaos once, and the Datsun didn't do it at all on the downhill chaos. So I don't know. It's an amusing bug. It is a challenge. Can you get around the course before the car just decides it doesn't want to be a car anymore and fall apart? Oversteer again, getting a little bit too much on the curves and then getting a bit carried away on the throttle, and we find ourselves on our roofs again. I spent more time upside down than I thought I would on this street circuit. Yeah, I was being a little bit too ambitious with the throttle on that one, and it just got away from me. Doors pinged open again. Again, it was on another fairly good lap as well. We were going along, and the car is deciding to sort of fall apart on me completely. I don't know what on earth causes this. I find it kind of amusing. As we're going along, the roof is now going up. We rushed the wall at turn, I think it's turn 8 on this track, could be. It's pretty broken. I then got so distracted looking at the roof making funny shapes I forgot to brake for the hairpin, so we then clatter into the wall as well with the truck. That lap's that's no good. We're making weird shapes with the Datsun. It did take a little bit of time, and there were quite a few clips of me just spinning out in stupid ways around this track. A four-wheel drive version of this I think could actually be very, very fast around this track. As it is, the two-wheel drive race version that I'm using is good handling, is good to drive. It's pretty stable at the high speeds. We don't have the problem that we had with the buggy. It's nice and stable at high speeds. It's pretty damn quick in a straight line as well compared to the other vehicles. It's the power delivery. Putting the power down out of the corners is so hard. You have to be so incredibly careful that you lose an awful lot of time out of these corners, because there are a lot of slow corners on this track. Apart from the power delivery, it does handle very, very well. We haven't got massive amounts of understeer going on like we had with the Polo. Yeah, it's a nice vehicle. I didn't expect to be saying that it was a really nice vehicle to drive. We just ran a tiny little bit wide over the curb, and then you see we have the problem with trying to get some of the power down to the road. I was short shifting quite a bit with this vehicle in an attempt to get it to sort of stop wheel spinning at times. Yeah, it's quicker than the Polo. In fact, it's one of the quicker cars we've had down here in a straight line. Can't be flat out through here. You do have to have a bit of a lift to get around there. Flat out, you get understeer into a wall. Not a pretty sight. Underbraking into the hairpin. Yeah, it's not the best car in the world on the brakes, but it's certainly not as bad as some. I mean, it's getting stopped again, same distance as the Polo, while it's doing sort of 20 miles an hour quicker. So yeah, it's an all-round pretty good vehicle, much better than I was expecting it to be. As we come round these corners, that understeer cars really struggle around these corners, so the Datsun doesn't have too many problems, and we're not dealing with huge power delivery moments at this point in time, so the Datsun can be pretty good around here as we head up towards the final corner, where you do have to be careful on the throttle. Get a little bit of a lock-up coming into the corner. Be careful on the power. Again, short shifting on a couple of the gears just to make sure we don't do anything really silly, and the Datsun is across the line. Yeah, I quite like this car. I did enjoy messing around with the Datsun, and then we can have a celebratory burnout. I was trying to get the car to disintegrate itself again. I mean, the back suspension doesn't look particularly happy with me. I couldn't get it to completely... I don't know what I did the first time to make it just fall apart. But I couldn't manage to do it again. Yeah, Datsun's a very nice car, actually. Great fun messing around with this particular vehicle. Now it is on to the times. The WRC Polo goes the quickest of the three, but it's not massively quick. A 2 minutes 6.2, fractionally behind the supercar. It's not a bad time from the Datsun. A 2 minute 8.9, not far off the Polo. You just lose so much time waiting to put the power down with that vehicle, hence why it's a couple of seconds down. A four-wheel drive version of that I think could go pretty damn quick. Maybe not beating the Capri, but I think it will be pretty fast. And the buggy, well, it might lead downhill chaos times, but it did struggle around here. It is the slowest of the lot with a 2 minute 10.9. There we go. That is it for this episode, guys. So thank you very much for watching. If you want to have a go with the mods used in this, then there will be the links to all of them in the description. However, until next time, goodbye.